Saint Dorothy by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. It hath been seen, and yet it shall be seen, that out of tender mouths God's praise hath been made perfect. And with wood and simple string he hath played music sweet as sham playing, to please himself with softness of all sound. And no small thing but hath been sometime found full sweet of use, and no such humbleness but God hath bruised with all the sentences and evidence of wise men witnessing. No leaf that is so soft a hidden thing, it never shall get sight of the great sun. The strength of 10 has been the strength of 1, and lowliness has waxed imperious. There was in Rome a man, Theophilus, of right great blood and gracious ways, that had all noble fashions to make people glad, and a soft life of pleasurable days. He was a goodly man for one to praise, flawless, and whole upward from foot to head. His arms were a red hawk that always fed on a small bird with feathers gnawed upon, beaten and plucked about the bosom bone, whereby a small round fleck like fire there was. They called it in their tongue lampadias. This was the banner of the lordly man. In many straits of sea and reaches wan, full of quick wind, and many a shaken firth, it had seen fighting days of either earth, westward or east of waters Gaditane. This was the place of sea rocks under Spain, called after the great praise of Hercules, and north beyond the washing Pontic seas, far windy Russian places fabulous, and salt fierce tides of storm-swollen Bosphorus. Now as this lord came straying in Rome town, he saw a little lattice open down, and after it a press of maidens' heads that sat upon their cold, small, quiet beds, talking, and played upon short-stringed lutes, and other some ground perfume out of roots gathered by marvelous moons in Asia, saffron and aloes and wild cassia, colored all through and smelling of the sun. And over all these was a certain one clothed softly, with sweet herbs about her hair and bosom flowerful, her face more fair than sudden singing April in soft lands, eyes like a gracious bird, and in both hands she held a psalter painted green and red. This Theophil laughed at the heart and said, Now God so help me hither and St. Paul, as by the new time of their festival I have good will to take this maid to wife, and herewith fell to fancies of her life and soft half-thoughts that ended suddenly. This is man's guise to please himself, when he shall not see one thing of his pleasant things, nor with outwatch of many travailings come to be eased of the least pain he hath for all his love and all his foolish wrath and all the heavy manner of his mind. Thus is he like a fisher fallen blind, that casts his nets across the boat awry to strike the sea, but lo, he striketh dry, and plucks them back all broken for his pain, and bites his beard, and casts across again, and reaching wrong slips over in the sea. So hath this man a strangled neck for fee, for all his cost he chuckles in his throat. This Theophile, that little hereof wot, laid wait to hear of her what she might be. Man told him she had name of Dorothy, and was a lady of a worthy house. Thereat this knight grew inly glorious, that he should have a love so fair of place. She was a maiden of most quiet face, tender of speech, and had no hardihood, but was nigh feeble in her fearful blood. Her mercy in her was so marvellous from her least years, that seeing her schoolfellows that read beside her stricken with a rod, she would cry sore and say some word to God, that he would ease her fellow of his pain. There is no touch of sun or fallen rain that ever fell on a more gracious thing. In Middle Rome there was, in stone working, the Church of Venus painted royally. The chapels of it were some 2 or 3. In each of them her tabernacle was, and a wide window of 6 feet in glass, colored with all her works in red and gold. The altars had bright cloths and cups to hold the wine of Venus for the services, made out of honey and crushed woodberries that shed sweet yellow through the thick wet red, that on high days was borne upon the head of Venus's priest for any man to drink, so that in drinking he should fall to think of some fair face, and in the thought thereof worship, and such should triumph in his love. For this soft wine that did such grace and good was new trans-shaped and mixed with love's own blood, that in the fighting Trojan time was bled, for which came such a woe to Diomed, that he was stifled after in hard sea. And some said that this wine-shedding should be made of the falling of Adonis's blood, that curled upon the thorns and broken wood, and round the gold silk shoes on Venus's feet. The taste thereof was as hot honey sweet, and in the mouth ran soft and riotous. This was the holiness of Venus's house. It was their worship that in August days 12 maidens should go through those Roman ways naked, and having gold across their brows, and their hair twisted in short golden rows, to minister to Venus in this wise. And 12 men chosen in their companies to match these maidens by the altar stair, all in one habit, crowned upon the hair. Among these men was chosen Theophile. This knight went out and prayed a little while, holding Queen Venus by her hands and knees. I will give thee 12 royal images cut in glad gold, with marvels of wrought stone for thy sweet priests to lean and pray upon, jasper and hyacinth and chrysoprase, and the strange Asian thelemite that was hidden 12 ages under heavy sea, among the little sleepy pearls, to be a shrine lit over with soft candle flame, burning all night red as hot brows of shame. So thou wilt be my lady without sin. Goddess that art all gold outside and in, help me to serve thee in thy holy way. Thou knowest, love, that in my bearing day there shone a laughter in the singing stars round the gold-sealed bride bed wherein Mars touched thee and had thee in your kissing wise. Now, therefore, sweet, kiss thou my maiden's eyes, that they may open graciously towards me, and this new fashion of thy shrine shall be as soft with gold as thine own happy head. The goddess, that was painted with face red between 2 long green tumbled sides of sea, stooped her neck sideways, and spake pleasantly, Thou shalt have grace as thou art thrall of mine. And with this came a savour of shed wine, and plucked out petals from a rose's head. And softly with slow laughs of lip she said, Thou shalt have favour all thy days of me. Then came Theophilus to Dorothy, saying, "O sweet, if one should strive or speak against God's ways, he gets a beaten cheek for all his wage, and shame above all men. Therefore I have no will to turn again when God saith, Go, lest a worse thing fall out." Then she, misdoubting lest he went about to catch her wits, made answer somewhat thus: "I have no will, my lord Theophilus, to speak against this worthy word of yours, knowing how God's will in all speech endures, that save by grace there may no thing be said." Then Theophile waxed light from foot to head, and softly fell upon this answering: "It is well seen you are a chosen thing to do God's service in his gracious way. I will that you make haste and holiday to go next year upon the Venus stair, covered none else but crowned upon your hair, and do the service that a maiden doth." She said, "But I that am Christ's maid were loath to do this thing that hath such bitter name." Thereat his brows were beaten with sore shame, and he came off and said no other word. Then his eyes chanced upon his banner bird, and he fell fingering at the staff of it, and laughed for wrath, and stared between his feet. And out of a chafed heart he spake as thus: "Lo, how she japes at me, Theophilus, feigning herself a fool and hard to love. Yet in good time, for all she boasteth of, she shall be like a little beaten bird." And while his mouth was open in that word, he came upon the house Janiculum, where some went busily, and other some talked in the gate called the Gate Glorious. The emperor, which was one Gabelus, sat over all and drank chill wine alone, to whom is come Theophilus anon, and said as thus: "Beau sire, Dieu vous aide," and afterward sat under him, and said all this thing through, as ye have wholly heard. This Gabelus laughed thickly in his beard. "Yea, this is righteousness and maiden rule. Truly," he said, "a maid is but a fool," and japed at them as one full villainous, in a lewd wise, this heathen Gabelus, and sent his men to bind her as he bade. Thus have they taken Dorothy the maid, and haled her forth as men hail pick-purses. A little need God knows they had of this, to hail her by her maiden gentle hair. Thus went she lowly, making a soft prayer, as one who stays the sweet wine in his mouth, murmuring with eased lips, and is most loath to have done wholly with the sweet of it. Christ King, fair Christ, that knowest all men's wit, and all the feeble fashion of my ways, O perfect God, that from all yesterdays abidest whole with morrows perfected, I pray thee by thy mother's holy head, thou help me to do right, that I not slip. I have no speech nor strength upon my lip, except thou help me who art wise and sweet. Do this too for those nails that clove thy feet. Let me die maiden after many pains. Though I be least among thy handmaidens, doubtless I shall take death more sweetly thus. Now have they brought her to King Gabelus, who laughed in all his throat some breathing whiles. "By God," he said, "if one should leap 2 miles, he were not pained about the sight so much. This were a soft thing for a man to touch. Shall one so chafe that hath such little bones? And shook his throat with thick and chuckled moans for laughter that she had such holiness. What aileth thee? Wilt thou do services? It were good fare to fare as Venus doth. Then said this lady with her maiden mouth, shamefaced, and something paler in the cheek, Now, sir, albeit my wit and will to speak give me no grace in sight of worthy men, for all my shame yet know I this again, I may not speak, nor after down lying rise up to take delight in lute playing, nor sing, nor sleep, nor sit and fold my hands, but my soul in some measure understands God's grace laid like a garment over me. For this fair God that out of strong sharp sea lifted the shapely and green-colored land, and hath the weight of heaven in his hand, as one might hold a bird, and under him the heavy golden planets beam by beam, building the feasting chambers of his house, and the large world he holdeth with his brows, and with the light of them astonisheth all place and time and face of life and death, and motion of the north wind and the south, and is the sound within his angel's mouth of singing words and words of thanksgiving, and is the color of the latter spring, and heat upon the summer and the sun, and is beginning of all things begun, and gathers in him all things to their end, and with the fingers of his hand doth bend the stretched out sides of heaven like a sail, and with his breath he maketh the red pale, and fills with blood faint faces of men dead, and with the sound between his lips are fed iron and fire, and the white body of snow, and blossom of all trees in places low, and small bright herbs about the little hills, and fruit picked softly with birds' tender bills, and flight of foam about green fields of sea, and fourfold strength of the great winds that be moved always outward from beneath his feet, and growth of grass, and growth of sheaved wheat, and all green flower of goodly growing lands. And all these things he gathers with his hands, and covers all their beauty with his wings. The same, even God that governs all these things, hath set my feet to be upon his ways. Now, therefore, for no painfulness of days I shall put off this service bound on me. Also, fair sir, you know this certainly, how God was in his flesh full chaste and meek, and gave his face to shame, and either cheek gave up to smiting of man tyrannous. And here with a great voice this Gabelus cried out and said, By God's blood and his bones, this were good game betwixt a knight and nuns, for one to sit and hearken to such saws. I were as lief fall in some big beast's jaws as hear these women's jaw-teeth clattering. By God, a woman is the harder thing. One may not put a hook into her mouth. Now, by Saint Luke, I am so sore a drought for all these saws I must needs drink again. But I pray God deliver all us men from all such noise of women and their heat. That is a noble scripture, well I weet, that likens women to an empty can. When God said that he was a full wise man, I trow no man may blame him as for that. And herewithal he drank a draught and spat, and said, Now shall I make an end hereof. Come near, all men, and hearken for God's love, and ye shall hear a jest or twain, God wot. And spake as thus with mouth full thick and hot. But thou to this thou shalt be shortly slain. Lo, sir, she said, this death and all this pain I take in penance for my bitter sins. Yea now, quoth Gabelus, this game begins. Lo, without sin one shall not live a span. Lo, this is she that would not look on man between her fingers folded in thwartwise. See how her shame hath smitten in her eyes, that was so clean she had not heard of shame. Certes, he said, by Gabelus my name, this 2 years back I was not so well pleased. This were good mirth for sick men to be eased, and rise up whole and laugh at hearing of. I pray thee, show us something of thy love. Since thou wast made, thy gown is waxen wide. Yea, maid I am, she said, and somewhat sighed, as one who thought upon the low fair house, where she sat working, with soft bended brows watching her threads among the school maidens, and she thought well, now God had brought her thence, she should not come to sow her gold again. Then cried King Gabelus upon his men to have her forth and draw her with steel gins. And as a man hag-ridden beats and grins and bends his body sidelong in his bed, so wagged he with his body and knave's head, gaping at her and blowing with his breath. And in good time he get an evil death out of his lewdness with his cursed wives. His bones were hewn asunder as with knives for his misleading, certes it is said. But all the evil wrought upon this maid, it were full hard for one to handle it, for her soft blood was shed upon her feet, and all her body's colour bruised and faint. But she, as one abiding God's great saint, spake not nor wept for all this travail hard. Wherefore the king commanded afterward to slay her presently in all men's sight. And it was now an hour upon the night and winter time, and a few stars began. The weather was yet feeble, and all wan for beating of a weighty wind and snow. And she came walking in soft wise and slow, and many men with faces piteous. Then came this heavy cursing Gabelus, that swore full hard into his drunken beard. And faintly after, without any word, came Theophile some paces off the king. And in the middle of this wayfaring, full tenderly beholding her, he said, There is no word of comfort with men dead, nor any face and colour of things sweet. But alway with lean cheeks and lifted feet these dead men lie, all aching to the blood with bitter cold, their brows withouten hood beating for chill, their bodies swathed full thin. Alas, what hire shall any have herein to give his life and get such bitterness? Also the soul, going forth bodiless, is hurt with naked cold, and no man saith if there be house or covering for death to hide the soul that is discomforted. Then she, beholding him a little, said, Alas, fair lord, you have no wit of this. For on one side death is full poor of bliss, and as ye say, full sharp of bone and lean. But on the other side is good and green, and hath soft flower of tender coloured hair grown on his head, and a red mouth as fair as may be kissed with lips. There too his face is as God's face, and in a perfect place full of all sun and colour of straight boughs, and waterheads about a painted house that hath a mile of flowers either way outward from it, and blossom grass of May, thickening on many a side for length of heat, hath God set death upon a noble seat, covered with green and flowered in the fold, in likeness of a great king grown full old, and gentle with new temperance of blood, and on his brows a purfled purple hood, they may not carry any golden thing, and plays some tune with subtle fingering on a small cithern, full of tears and sleep, and heavy pleasure that is quick to weep, and sorrow with the honey in her mouth. And for this might of music that he doth, are all souls drawn toward him with great love, and weep for sweetness of the noise thereof, and bow to him with worship of their knees. And all the field is thick with companies of fair-clothed men, that play on shawms and lutes, and gather honey of the yellow fruits between the branches waxen soft and white. And all this peace endures in either side of the green land, and God beholdeth all. And this is girdled with a round fair wall, made of red stone, and cool with heavy leaves grown out against it, and green blossom cleaves to the green chinks, and lesser wall weed sweet, kissing the crannies that are split with heat, and branches where the summer draws to head. And Theophile burnt in the cheek, and said, Yea, could one see it, this were marvellous. I pray you, at your coming to this house, give me some leaf of all those tree branches, seeing how so sharp and white our weather is, there is no green nor gracious red to see. Yea, sir, she said, that shall I certainly. And from her long sweet throat without a fleck undid the gold, and through her stretched out neck the cold axe clove, and smote away her head. Out of her throat the tender blood full red fell suddenly through all her long soft hair, and with good speed for hardness of the air, each man departed to his house again. Lo, as fair colour in the face of men at seed time of their blood, or in such wise as a thing seen increaseth in men's eyes, caught first far off by sickly fits of sight, so a word said, if one shall hear aright, abides against the season of its growth. This Theophile went slowly, as one doth that is not sure for sickness of his feet, and counting the white stonework of the street, tears fell out of his eyes for wrath and love, making him weep more for the shame thereof than for true pain. So went he half a mile, and women mocked him, saying, Theophile, lo, she is dead. What shall a woman have that loveth such an one? So Christ me save, I were as lief to love a man new hung. Surely this man has bitten on his tongue, this makes him sad and writhed in his face. And when they came upon the paven place that was called sometime the place amorous, there came a child before Theophilus, bearing a basket, and said suddenly, Fair sir, this is my mistress Dorothy that sends you gifts. And with this he was gone. In all this earth there was not such an one for colour and straight stature made so fair. The tender growing gold of his pure hair was as wheat growing, and his mouth as flame. God called him holy after his own name. With gold cloth like fire burning he was clad. But for the fair green basket that he had, it was filled up with heavy white and red. Great roses stained still where the first rose bled, burning at heart for shame their heart withholds, and the sad color of strong marigolds that have the sun to kiss their lips for love, the flower that Venus's hair is woven of, the color of fair apples in the sun, late peaches gathered when the heat was done, and the slain air got breath, and after these the fair faint-headed poppies drunk with ease, and heaviness of hollow lilies red. Then cried they all that saw these things, and said it was God's doing, and was marvelous. And in brief, while this night Theophilus is waxen full of faith, and witnesseth before the king of God and love and death, for which the king bade hang him presently. A gallows of a goodly piece of tree this Gabelus hath made to hang him on. Forth of this world, lo, Theophile is gone with a wried neck. God give us better fare than his that hath a twisted throat to wear. But truly, for his love God hath him brought there where his heavy body grieves him not, nor all the people plucking at his feet. But in his face, his lady's face, is sweet, and through his lips her kissing lips are gone. God sent him peace and joy of such an one. This is the story of Saint Dorothy. I will you of your mercy pray for me, because I wrote these sayings for your grace, that I may one day see her in the face. End of poem. The Two Dreams by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. From Boccaccio. I will that if I say a heavy thing, your tongues forgive me, seeing you know that spring has flax and fits of pain to keep her sweet, and walks somewhile with winter-bitten feet. Moreover, it sounds often well to let one string, when ye play music, keep at fret the whole song through. One petal that is dead confirms the roses, be they white or red. Dead sorrow is not sorrowful to hear as the thick noise that breaks mid-weeping were. The sick sound aching in a lifted throat turns to sharp silver of a perfect note. And though the rain falls often, and with rain late autumn falls on the old red leaves like pain, I deem that God is not disquieted. Also, while men are fed with wine and bread, they shall be fed with sorrow at his hand. There grew a rose garden in Florence land, more fair than many. All red summers through, the leaves smelt sweet and sharp of rain, and blew sideways with tender wind. And therein fell sweet sound wherewith the green waxed audible, as a bird's will to sing disturbed his throat, and set the sharp wings forward like a boat pushed through soft water, moving his brown side smooth-shapen as a maid's, and shook with pride his deep warm bosom, till the heavy sun's set face of heat stopped all the songs at once. The ways were clean to walk and delicate, and when the windy white of March grew late, before the trees took heart to face the sun with ravelled raiment of lean winter on, the roots were thick and hot with hollow grass. Some roods away a lordly house there was, cool with broad courts and latticed passage, wet from rush flowers and lilies ripe to set, sown close among the strewings of the floor, and either wall of the slow corridor was dim with deep device of gracious things. Some angels' steady mouth and weight of wings shut to the side, or Peter, with straight stole and beard cut black against the aureole that spanned his head from nape to crown, thereby Mary's gold hair, thick to the girdle tie wherein was bound a child with tender feet, or the broad cross with blood nigh brown on it. Within this house a righteous lord abode, Ser Averardo, patient of his mood and just of judgment, and to child he had a maid so sweet that her mere sight made glad men sorrowing, and unbound the brows of hate. And where she came, the lips that pain made straight waxed warm and wide, and from untender grew tender as those that sleep brings patience to. Such long locks had she, that with knee to chin she might have wrapped and warmed her feet therein. Right seldom fell her face unweeping wise. Gold hair she had, and golden-colored eyes, filled with clear light and fire, and large repose like a fair hound's. No man there is but knows her face was white, and thereto she was tall. In no wise lacked there any praise at all to her most perfect and pure maidenhood. No sin, I think, there was in all her blood. She, where a gold grate shut the roses in, dwelt daily through deep summer weeks, through green flushed hours of rain upon the leaves, and there love made him room and space to worship her with tender worship of bowed knees, and wrought such pleasure as the pained sense pallets not for weariness, but at one taste undoes the heart of its strong sweet, is ravenous of all the hidden honey. Words and sense fail through the tune's imperious prevalence. In a poor house this lover kept apart, long communing with patience next his heart, if love of his might move that face at all, tuned even-wise with colors musical. Then, after length of days, he said thus, Love, for love's own sake, and for the love thereof, let no harsh words untune your gracious mood, for good it were, if anything be good, to comfort me in this pain's plague of mine. Seeing thus how neither sleep nor bread nor wine seems pleasant to me, yea, no thing that is seems pleasant to me, only I know this, love's ways are sharp for palms of piteous feet to travel, but the end of such is sweet. Now do with me as seemeth you the best. She mused a little, as one holds his guest by the hand, musing, with her face borne down, then said, Yea, though such bitter seed be sown, have no more care of all that you have said, since if there is no sleep will bind your head, lo, I am fain to help you certainly. Christ knoweth, sir, if I would have you die, there is no pleasure when a man is dead. Thereat he kissed her hands and yellow head, and clipped her fair long body many times. I have no wit to shape in written rhymes a scanted tithe of this great joy they had. They were too near love's secret to be glad, as whoso deems the core will surely melt from the warm fruit his lips caress, hath felt some bitter kernel where the teeth shut hard, or as sweet music sharpens afterward, being half disrelished both for sharp and sweet. As sea water, having killed overheat in a man's body, chills it with faint ache, so their sense, burdened only for love's sake, failed for pure love. Yet, so time served their wit, they saved each day some gold reserves of it, being wiser in love's riddle than such be whom fragments feed with his chance charity. All things felt sweet were felt sweet overmuch. The rose thorns prickled dangerous to touch, and flecks of fire in the thin leaf shadows, too keen the breathed honey of the rose, its red too harsh a weight on feasted eyes. They were so far gone in love's histories, beyond all shape and color and mere breath, where pleasure has for kinsfolk sleep and death, and strength of soul and body waxen blind for weariness, and flesh entailed with mind, when the keen edge of sense foretasteth sin. Even this green place the summer caught them in seemed half deflowered and sick with beaten leaves in their strayed eyes. These gold flower-fumed eaves burnt out to make the sun's love offering, the mid-noon's prayer, the rose's thanksgiving, the tree's weight burdening the strengthless air, the shape of her stilled eyes, her colored hair, her body's balance from the moving feet, all this, found fair, lacked yet one grain of sweet it had some warm weeks back. So perisheth on May's new lip the tender April breath. So those same walks the wind sowed lilies in all April through, and all their latter kin of languid leaves whereon the autumn blows. The dead red raiment of the last year's rose, the last year's laurel, and the last year's love, fade and grow things that death grows weary of. What man will gather in red summer-time the fruit of some obscure and hoary rhyme heard last midwinter, taste the heart of it, mold the smooth semitones afresh, refit the fair limbs ruined, flush the dead blood through with color, make old broken beauties new for love's new lesson? Shall not such find pain when the marred music laboring in his brain frets him with sweet sharp fragments, and lets slip one word that might leave satisfied his lip, one touch that might put fire in all the chords? This was her pain, to miss from all sweet words some taste of sound, diverse and delicate, some speech the old love found out to compensate for seasons of shut lips and drowsiness, some grace, some word the old love found out to bless passionless months and undelighted weeks. The flowers had lost their summer-scented cheeks. Their lips were no more sweet than daily breath. The year was plagued with instances of death. So fell it. These were sitting in cool grass with leaves about, and many a bird there was where the green shadow thickliest impleached soft fruit and writhen spray and blossom bleached dry in the sun or washed with rains to white. Her girdle was pure silk, the bosom bright with purple as purple water and gold wrought in. One branch had touched with dusk her lips and chin, made violet of the throat, abashed with shade the breast's bright plaited work, but nothing frayed the sun's large kiss on the luxurious hair. Her beauty was new color to the air and music to the silent many birds. Love was unhungered for some perfect words to praise her with, but only her low name Andrevuola came thrice, and thrice put shame in her clear cheek, so fruitful with new red that for pure love straightway shame's self was dead. Then with lids gathered as who late had wept, she began saying, I have so little slept, my lids drowse now against the very sun. Yea, the brain aching with a dream begun beats like a fitful blood. Kiss but both brows, and you shall pluck my thoughts grown dangerous almost away. He said thus, kissing them. O soul sweet thing that God is glad to name, my one gold gift, if dreams be sharp and sore, shall not the waking time increase much more with taste and sound, sweet eyesight or sweet scent? Has any heat too hard and insolent burnt bare the tender married leaves, undone the maiden grass shut under from the sun? Where in this world is room enough for pain? The feverish finger of love had touched again her lips with happier blood. The pain lay meek in her fair face, nor altered lip nor cheek with pallor or with pulse. But in her mouth love thirsted as a man wayfaring doth, making it humble as weak hunger is. She lay close to him, bade do this and this, say that, sing thus. Then almost weeping ripe, crouched, then laughed low, as one that fain would wipe the old record out of all things done and dead. She rose, she heaved her hands up, and waxed red for wilful heart and blameless fear of blame, saying, Though my wits be weak, this is no shame for a poor maid whom love so punisheth with heats of hesitation and stopped breath, that with my dreams I live yet heavily, for pure sad heart and faith's humility. Now be not wroth, and I will show you this. Methought our lips upon their second kiss met in this place, and a fair day we had, and fair soft leaves that waxed and were not sad with shaken rain or bitten through with drouth, when I, beholding ever how your mouth waited for mine, the throat being fallen back, saw crawl thereout a live thing flaked with black specks of brute slime and leopard-colored scale, a devil's hide with foul flame-writhen grail, fashioned where hell's heat festers loathsomest. And that brief speech may ease me of the rest. Thus were you slain and eaten of the thing. My waked eyes felt the new day shuddering on their low lids, felt the whole east so beat, pant with close pulse of such a plague-struck heat, as if the palpitating dawn drew breath for horror, breathing between life and death, till the sun sprang blood-bright and violent. So finishing her soft strength wholly spent, she gazed each way, lest some brood-hooved thing, the timeless travail of hell's childbearing, should tread upon the sudden, whereat he, for relish of her tasted misery and tender little thorn-prick of her pain, laughed with mere love. What lover among men but hath his sense fed sovereignly 'twixt whiles, with tears and covered eyelids, and 6 smiles and soft disaster of a painted face? What pain established in so sweet a place, but the plucked leaf of it smells fragrantly? What color burning man's wide open eye, but may be pleasurably seen? What scent keeps in its hot, sharp, extreme violence no savor of sweet things? The bereaved blood and emptied flesh in their most broken mood fail not so wholly, famish not when thus past honey keeps the starved lip covetous. Therefore this speech from a glad mouth began, breathed in her tender hair and temples when, like one prolonged kiss while the lips had breath. Sleep that abides in vassalage of death, and in death's service wears out half his age, hath his dreams full of deadly vassalage, shadow and sound of things ungracious, fair shallow faces, hooded bloodless brows, and mouths past kissing. Yea, myself have had as harsh a dream as holds your eyelids sad. This dream, I tell you, came 3 nights ago. In full mid-sleep I took a whim to know how sweet things might be, so I turned and thought, but save my dream all sweet availed me not. First came a smell of pounded spice, and scent such as God ripens in some continent of utmost amber in the Syrian sea, and breaths, as though some costly rose could be spoiled slowly, wasted by some bitter fire to burn the sweet out leaf by leaf, and tire the flower's poor heart with heat and waste, to make strong magic for some perfumed woman's sake. Then a cool, naked sense beneath my feet of bud and blossom, and sound of veins that beat as if a lute should play of its own heart and fearfully, not smitten of either part. And all my blood it filled with sharp and sweet, as gold-swollen grain fills out the husked wheat. So I rose naked from the bed, and stood counting the mobile measure in my blood some pleasant while, and through each limb there came swift little pleasures pungent as a flame, felt in the thrilling flesh and veins as much as the outer curls that feel the comb's first touch thrill to the roots and shiver as from fire. And blind between my dream and my desire, I seemed to stand, and held my spirit still lest this should cease. A child whose fingers spill honey from cells forgotten of the bee is less afraid to stir the hive and see some wasp's bright back inside than I to feel some finger touch disturb the flesh like steel. I prayed thus, let me catch a secret here so sweet it sharpens the sweet taste of fear and takes the mouth with edge of wine. I would have here some color and smooth shape as good as those in heaven whom the chief garden hides, with low grape blossom veiling their white sides, and lesser tendrils that so bind and blind their eyes and feet, that if one come behind to touch their hair, they see not, neither fly. This would I see in heaven and not die. So praying, I had nigh cried out and knelt, so holy my prayer filled me, till I felt in the dumb night's warm weight of glowing gloom somewhat that altered all my sleeping room, and made it like a green low place wherein maids mix to bathe. One sets her small warm chin against a ripple, that the angry pearl may flow like flame about her. The next curl dips in some eddy colored of the sun to wash the dust well out. Another one holds a straight ankle in her hand and swings with lavish body sidelong, so that rings of sweet fierce water, swollen and splendid, fail all round her fine and floated body pale, swayed flower fashion, and her balanced side swerved edgeways lets the weight of water slide, as taken in some underflow of sea swerves the blanked gold of sea flowers. But she pulls down some branch to keep her perfect head clear of the river. Even from wall to bed, I tell you, was my room transfigured so. Sweet, green, and warm it was, nor could one know if there were walls or leaves, or if there was no bed's green curtain, but mere gentle grass. There were set also, hard against the feet, gold plates with honey and green grapes to eat, with the cool water's noise to hear in rhymes. And the wind warmed me full of firs and limes, and all hot sweets the heavy summer fills to the round brim of smooth cup-shapen hills. Next, the grave walking of a woman's feet made my veins hesitate, and gracious heat made thick the lids and leaden on mine eyes. And I thought ever, surely it were wise not yet to see her. This may last, who knows, 5 minutes. The poor rose is twice a rose because it turns a face to her. The wind sings that way. Hath this woman ever sinned, I wonder? As a boy with apple rind I played with pleasures, made them to my mind, changed each ere tasting. When she came indeed, first her hair touched me, then I grew to feed on the sense of her hand. Her mouth at last touched me between the cheek and lip, and passed over my face with kisses here and there, sewn in and out across the eyes and hair. Still I said nothing, till she set her face more close and harder on the kissing place, and her mouth caught like a snake's mouth, and stung so faint and tenderly, the fang scarce clung more than a bird's foot, yet a wound it grew, a great one. Let this red mark witness you under the left breast. And the stroke thereof so clove my sense that I woke out of love, and knew not what this dream was, nor had wit. But now God knows if I have skill of it. Hereat she laid one palm against her lips to stop their trembling, as when water slips out of a beak-mouthed vessel with faint noise, and chuckles in the narrow throat, and cloys the carven rims with murmuring. So came words in her lips with no word right of them, a beaten speech, thick and disconsolate, till his smile ceasing waxed compassionate of her sore fear that grew from anything. The sound of the strong summer thickening in heated leaves of the smooth apple trees, the day's breath felt about in ash branches, and noises of the noon whose weight still grew on the hot heavy-headed flowers, and drew their red mouths open till the rose heart ached. For eastward all the crowding rose was slaked and soothed with shade, but westward all its growth seemed to breathe hard with heat, as a man doth who feels his temples newly feverous. And even with such motion in her brows as that man hath in whom sick days begin, she turned her throat and spake, her voice being thin as a sick man's, sudden and tremulous. If this end be come indeed on us, let us love more, and held his mouth with hers. As the first sound of flooded hill waters is heard by people on the meadow grass, or ever a wandering wave of ruin pass, with whirling stones and foam of the brown stream, flaked with fierce yellow, so beholding him she felt, before tears came, her eyelids wet, saw the face deadly thin where life was yet, heard his throat's harsh last moan before it clomb, and he, with close mouth passionate and dumb, burned at her lips. So lay they without speech, each grasping other, and the eyes of each fed in the other's face, till suddenly he cried out with a little broken cry this word, "Oh, help me, sweet, I am but dead." And even so saying, the color of fair red was gone out of his face, and his blood's beat fell, and stark death made sharp his upward feet and pointed hands, and without moan he died. Pain smote her sudden in the brows and side, strained her lips open, and made burn her eyes. For the pure sharpness of her miseries she had no heart's pain, but mere body's rack. But at the last her beaten blood drew back slowly upon her face, and her stunned brows, suddenly grown aware and piteous, gathered themselves, her eyes shone, her hard breath came as though one nigh dead came back from death, her lips throbbed, and life trembled through her hair. And in brief while she thought to bury there the dead man, that her love might lie with him in a sweet bed under the rose roots dim, and soft earth round the branched apple trees, full of hushed heat and heavy with great ease, and no man entering divide him thence. Wherefore she bade one of her handmaidens to be her help to do upon this wise. And saying so, the tears out of her eyes fell without noise and comforted her heart. Yea, her great pain, eased of the sorest part, began to soften in her sense of it. There, under all the little branches sweet, the place was shapen of his burial. They shed thereon no thing funereal, but colored leaves of latter rose blossom, stems of soft grass, some withered red, and some fair and fresh-blooded, and spoil splendider of marigold and great spent sunflower. And afterward she came back without word to her own house. 2 days went, and the third went, and she showed her father of this thing. And for great grief of her soul's travailing, he gave consent she should endure in peace till her life's end. Yea, till her time should cease, she should abide in fellowship of pain. And having lived a holy year or twain, she died of pure waste heart and weariness. And for love's honor in her love's distress, this word was written over her tomb's head: Here dead she lieth, for whose sake love is dead. End of poem. Aholibah by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. In the beginning God made thee a woman well to look upon, thy tender body as a tree, whereon cool wind hath always blown, till the clean branches be well grown. There was none like thee in the land. The girls that were thy bondwomen did bind thee with a purple band upon thy forehead, that all men should know thee for God's handmaiden. Strange raiment clad thee like a bride, with silk to wear on hands and feet, and plates of gold on either side. Wine made thee glad, and thou didst eat honey, and choice of pleasant meat. And fishers in the middle sea did get thee sea fish and sea weeds, in color like the robes on thee, and curious work of plaited reeds, and wools wherein live purple bleeds. And round the edges of thy cup men wrought thee marvels out of gold, strong snakes with lean throats lifted up, large eyes whereon the brows had hold, and scaly things their slime kept cold. For thee they blew soft wind in flutes, and ground sweet roots for cunning scent. Made slow because of many lutes, the wind among thy chambers went wherein no light was violent. God called thy name Aholibah, his tabernacle being in thee, a witness through waste Asia. Thou wert a tent sewn cunningly with gold and colors of the sea. God gave thee gracious ministers, and all their work who plait and weave, the cunning of embroiderers that sew the pillow to the sleeve, and likeness of all things that live. Thy garments upon thee were fair with scarlet and with yellow thread. Also the weaving of thine hair was as fine gold upon thy head, and thy silk shoes were sewn with red. All sweet things he bade sift, and ground as a man grindeth wheat in mills, with strong wheels alway going round. He gave thee corn, and grass that fills the cattle on 1,000 hills. The wine of many seasons fed thy mouth, and made it fair and clean. Sweet oil was poured out on thy head, and ran down like cool rain between the straight close locks it melted in. The strong men and the captains knew thy chambers wrought and fashioned with gold and covering of blue, and the blue raiment of thine head, who sattest on a stately bed. All these had on their garments wrought the shape of beasts and creeping things, the body that availeth not, flat backs of worms and veined wings, and the lewd bulk that sleeps and stings. Also the chosen of the years, the multitude being at ease, with sackbuts and with dulcimers, and noise of shawms and psalteries, made mirth within the ears of these. But, as a common woman doth, thou didst think evil and devise. The sweet smell of thy breast and mouth thou madest as the harlot's wise, and there was painting on thine eyes. Yea, in the woven guest chamber, and by the painted passages, where the strange gracious paintings were, state upon state of companies, there came on thee the lust of these, because of shapes on either wall, sea-colored from some rare blue shell, at many a Tyrian interval, horsemen on horses, girdled well, delicate and desirable, thou saidst, I am sick of love, stay me with flagons, comfort me with apples for my pain thereof, till my hands gather in his tree that fruit wherein my lips would be. Yea, saidst thou, I will go up when there is no more shade than one may cover with a hollow cup, and make my bed against the sun till my blood's violence be done. Thy mouth was leant upon the wall, against the painted mouth, thy chin touched the hair's painted curve and fall, thy deep throat, fallen lax and thin, worked as the blood's beat worked therein. Therefore, O thou Aholibah, God is not glad because of thee, and thy fine gold shall pass away, like those fair coins of ore that be washed over by the middle sea. Then will one make thy body bare to strip it of all gracious things, and pluck the cover from thine hair, and break the gift of many kings, thy wrist rings and thine ankle rings. Likewise, the man whose body joins to thy smooth body, as was said, who hath a girdle on his loins, and dyed attire upon his head, the same who, seeing, worshipped, because thy face was like the face of a clean maiden that smells sweet, because thy gait was as the pace of one that opens not her feet, and is not heard within the street. Even he, O thou Aholibah, made separate from thy desire, shall cut thy nose and ears away, and bruise thee for thy body's hire, and burn the residue with fire. Then shall the heathen people say, the multitude being at ease, Lo, this is that Aholibah, whose name was blown among strange seas, grown old with soft adulteries. Also her bed was made of green, her windows beautiful for glass that she had made her bed between. Yea, for pure lust her body was made like white summer-colored grass. Her raiment was a strong man's spoil. Upon a table by a bed she set mine incense and mine oil, to be the beauty of her head, in chambers walled about with red. Also between the walls she had fair faces of strong men portrayed, all girdled round the loins, and clad with several cloths of woven braid, and garments marvellously made. Therefore the wrath of God shall be set as a watch upon her way, and whoso findeth by the sea blown dust of bones will hardly say if this were that Aholibah. End of poem. Love and Sleep by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Lying asleep between the strokes of night, I saw my love lean over my sad bed, pale as the duskiest lily's leaf, or head smooth-skinned and dark, with bare throat made to bite, too wan for blushing and too warm for white, but perfect colored without white or red. And her lips opened amorously, and said, I wist not what, saving one word, delight. And all her face was honey to my mouth, and all her body pasture to mine eyes, the long lithe arms and hotter hands than fire, the quivering flanks, hair smelling of the south, the bright light feet, the splendid supple thighs, and glittering eyelids of my soul's desire. End of poem. Madonna Mia by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Under green apple boughs that never a storm will rouse, my lady hath her house between two bowers. In either of the twain, red roses full of rain, she hath for bondwomen all kind of flowers. She hath no handmaid fair to draw her curled gold hair through rings of gold that bear her whole hair's weight. She hath no maids to stand gold-clothed on either hand. In all the great green land none is so great. She hath no more to wear but one white hood of vair, drawn over eyes and hair, wrought with strange gold, made for some great queen's head, some fair great queen since dead, as one straight gown of red against the cold. Beneath her eyelids deep, love lying seems asleep, love swift to wake, to weep, to laugh, to gaze. Her breasts are like white birds, in all her gracious words, as water grass to herds in the June days. To her all dews that fall and rains are musical, her flowers are fed from all, her joys from these. In the deep feathered firs their gift of joy is hers, in the least breath that stirs across the trees. She grows with greenest leaves, ripens with reddest sheaves, forgets, remembers, grieves, and is not sad. The quiet lands and skies leave light upon her eyes. None knows her weak or wise, or tired or glad. None knows, none understands what flowers are like her hands, though you should search all lands wherein time grows, What snows are like her feet, though his eyes burn with heat through gazing on my sweet, yet no man knows. Only this thing is said, that white and gold and red, God's three chief words, man's bread and oil and wine, were given her for dowers, and kingdom of all hours, and grace of goodly flowers and various vine. This is my lady's praise. God, after many days, wrought her in unknown ways in sunset lands. This was my lady's birth. God gave her might and mirth, and laid his whole sweet earth between her hands. Under deep apple boughs my lady hath her house. She wears upon her brows the flower thereof. All saying but what God saith to her is as vain breath. She is more strong than death, being strong as love. End of poem. The King's Daughter by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. We were 10 maidens in the green corn, small red leaves in the mill water. Fairer maidens never were born, apples of gold for the king's daughter. We were 10 maidens by a wellhead, small white birds in the mill water. Sweeter maidens never were wed, rings of red for the king's daughter. The first to spin, the second to sing, seeds of wheat in the mill water. The third May was a goodly thing, white bread and brown for the king's daughter. The fourth to sow, and the fifth to play, fair green weed in the mill water. The sixth May was a goodly May, white wine and red for the king's daughter. The seventh to woo, the eighth to wed, fair thin reeds in the mill water. The ninth had gold work on her head, honey in the comb for the king's daughter. The ninth had gold work round her hair, fallen flowers in the mill water. The 10th May was goodly and fair, golden gloves for the king's daughter. We were 10 maidens in a field green, fallen fruit in the mill water. Fairer maidens never have been, golden sleeves for the king's daughter. By there comes the king's young son, a little wind in the mill water. Out of 10 maidens you'll grant me one, a crown of red for the king's daughter. Out of 10 Mays you'll give me the best, a little rain in the mill water. A bed of yellow straw for all the rest, a bed of gold for the king's daughter. He's taken out the goodliest, rain that rains in the mill water. A comb of yellow shell for all the rest, a comb of gold for the king's daughter. He's made her bed to the goodliest, wind and hail in the mill water. A grass girdle for all the rest, a girdle of arms for the king's daughter. He's set his heart to the goodliest, snow that snows in the mill water. 9 little kisses for all the rest, an 100-fold for the king's daughter. He's ta'en his leave at the goodliest, broken boats in the mill water. Golden gifts for all the rest, sorrow of heart for the king's daughter. You'll make a grave for my fair body, running rain in the mill water, and you'll streak my brother at the sight of me, the pains of hell for the king's daughter. End of poem. After Death by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The 4 boards of the coffin lid heard all the dead man did. The first curse was in his mouth, made of grave's mould and deadly drouth. The next curse was in his head, made of God's work discomfited. The next curse was in his hands, made out of 2 grave bands. The next curse was in his feet, made out of a grave sheet. I had fair coins red and white, and my name was as great light. I had fair clothes, green and red, and strong gold bound round my head. But no meat comes in my mouth, now I fare as the worm doth. And no gold binds in my hair, now I fare as the blind fare. My life thews were of great strength, now am I waxen a span's length. My life sides were full of lust, now are they dried with dust. The first board spake and said, Is it best eating flesh or bread? The second answered it, Is wine or honey the more sweet? The third board spake and said, Is red gold worth a girl's gold head? The fourth made answer thus, All these things are as one with us. The dead man asked of them, Is the green land stained brown with flame? Have they hewn my son for beasts to eat, and my wife's body for beasts' meat? Have they boiled my maid in a brass pan, and built a gallows to hang my man? The boards said to him, This is a lewd thing that ye deem. Your wife has gotten a golden bed, all the sheets are sewn with red. Your son has gotten a coat of silk, the sleeves are soft as curdled milk. Your maid has gotten a kirtle new, all the skirt has braids of blue. Your man has gotten both ring and glove, wrought well for eyes to love. The dead man answered thus, What good gift shall God give us? The boards answered him anon, Flesh to feed hell's worm upon. End of poem. May Janet by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Breton. Stand up, thou May Janet, and go to the wars with me. He's drawn her by both hands with her face against the sea. He that strews red shall gather white, he that sows white reap red, before your face and my daughter's meet in a marriage bed. Gold coin shall grow in the yellow field, green corn in the green sea water, and red fruit grow of the roses red, ere your fruit grow in her. But I shall have her by land, he said, or I shall have her by sea, or I shall have her by strong treason, and no grace go with me. Her father's drawn her by both hands, he's rent her gown from her, he's ta'en the smock round her body, cast in the sea water. The captain's drawn her by both sides, out of the fair green sea. Stand up, thou May Janet, and come to the war with me. The first town they came to, there was a blue bright chamber. He clothed her on with silk, and belted her with amber. The second town they came to, the bridesmen feasted knee to knee. He clothed her on with silver, a stately thing to see. The third town they came to, the bridesmaids all had gowns of gold. He clothed her on with purple, a rich thing to behold. The last town they came to, he clothed her white and red, with a green flag either side of her, and a gold flag overhead. End of poem. The Bloody Sun by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Finish. Oh, where have you been the morn sae late, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. Oh, where have ye been the morn sae late, and I wot I hae not anither? By the water gate, oh dear mither. And what kind of work had ye there to make, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. And what kind of work had ye there to make? And I wot I hae not anither. Hae watered my steeds with water frae the lake, O dear mither. Why is your coat sae fouled the day, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. Why is your coat sae fouled the day, and I wot I hae not anither? The steeds were stamping sair by the weary banks of clay, O dear mither. And where got ye these leaves o' red, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. And where got ye these leaves o' red? And I wot I hae not anither. I have slain my ae brither by the weary waterhead, O dear mither. And where will ye gang to mak your mend, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. And where will ye gang to mak your mend? And I wot I hae not anither. The world is way, to the world is end, O dear mither. And what will ye leave your father dear, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. And what will ye leave your father dear? And I wot I hae not anither. The wood to fell, and the logs to bear, for he'll never see my body mair, O dear mither. And what will ye leave your mither dear, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. And what will ye leave your mither dear? And I wot I hae not anither. The wool to card, and the wool to wear, for ye'll never see my body mair, O dear mither. And what will ye leave for your wife to take, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. And what will ye leave for your wife to take? And I wot I hae not anither. A goodly gown, and a fair new make, for she'll do nae mair for my body's sake, O dear mither. And what will ye leave your young son fair, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. And what will ye leave your young son fair? And I wot ye hae not anither. A twiggen school rod for his body to bear. Though it guard him great, he'll get nae mair, O dear mither. And what will ye leave your little daughter sweet, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. And what will ye leave your little daughter sweet? And I wot ye hae not anither. Wild mulberries for her mouth to eat. She'll get nae mair though it guard her great, O dear mither. And when will ye come back for a roaming, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. And when will ye come back for a roaming? And I wot I hae not anither. When the sun rise out of the north is coming, O dear mither. When shall the sun rise on the north side be, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. When shall the sun rise on the north side be? And I wot I hae not anither. When chucky stains shall swim in the sea, O dear mither. When shall stains in the sea swim, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. When shall stains in the sea swim? And I wot I hae not anither. When birdies' feathers are as lead therein, O dear mither. When shall feathers be as lead, my merry son? Come, tell me hither. When shall feathers be as lead? And I wot I hae not anither. When God shall judge between the quick and dead, O dear mither. End of poem. The Sea Swallows by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. This fell when Christmas lights were done. Red rose leaves will never make wine. But before the Easter lights begun, the ways are sere for the till to the Tyne. Two lovers sat where the rowan blows, and all the grass is heavy and fine, by the gathering place of the sea swallows, when the wind brings them over the Tyne. Blossom of broom will never make bread, red rose leaves will never make wine. Between her brows she's grown red, that was full white in the fields by Tyne. Oh, what is this thing ye have on? Show me now, sweet daughter of mine. Oh, father, this is my little son that I found hid in the sides of Tyne. Oh, what will ye give my son to eat? Red rose leaves will never make wine. Fen water and adder's meat. The ways are sere from the till to the Tyne. Oh, what will ye get my son to wear? Red rose leaves will never make wine. A weed and a web of nettles hair. The ways are sere from the till to the Tyne. Oh, what will ye take to line his bed? Red rose leaves will never make wine. 2 black stones at the Kirkwall's head. The ways are sere from the till to the Tyne. Oh, what will ye give my son for land? Red rose leaves will never make wine. 3 girl spaces of red sand. The ways are sere for the till to the Tyne. Oh, what will ye give me for my son? Red rose leaves will never make wine. 6 times to kiss his young mouth on. The ways are sere for the till to the Tyne. But what have ye done with the bearing bread? And what have ye made of the washing wine? Or where have ye made your bearing bed to bear a son in the sides of Tyne? The bearing bread is soft and new, there is no soil in the straining wine. The bed was made between green and blue, it stands full soft by the sides of Tyne. The fair grass was my bearing bread, the well water my washing wine. The low leaves were my bearing bed, and that was best in the sides of Tyne. O daughter, if ye have done this thing, I wot the greater grief is mine. This was a bitter childbearing when ye were got by the sides of Tyne. About the time of sea swallows that fly full thick by 6 and 9, ye'll have my body out of the house to bury me by the sides of Tyne. Set 9 stones by the wall for twain. Red rose leaves will never make wine. For the bed I take will measure 10. The ways are sere fra the till to the Tyne. Tread 12 girl spaces out for 3. Red roses leaves will never make wine. For the pit I made has taken me. The ways are sere fra the till to the Tyne. End of poem. The Year of Love by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. There were 4 loves that one by one, following the seasons and the sun, passed over without tears, and fell away without farewell. The first was made of gold and tears, the next of aspen leaves and fears, the third of rose boughs and rose roots, the last love of strange fruits. These were the 4 loves faded. Hold some minutes fast the time of gold, when our lips each way clung and clove to a face full of love. The tears inside our eyelids met, wrung forth with kissing, and wept wet the faces, cleaving each to each where the blood served for speech. The second, with low patient brows, bound under aspen-colored boughs, and eyes made strong and grave with sleep, and yet too weak to weep. The third, with eager mouth at ease, fed from late autumn honey, lees of scarce gold left in letter cells with scattered flower smells, hair sprinkled over with spoiled sweet of ruined roses, wrists and feet slight swathed, as grassy girdled sheaves hold in stray poppy leaves. The fourth, with lips whereon has bled some great pale fruit's slow color, shed from the rank bitter husk, whence drips faint blood between her lips. Made of the heat of whole great Junes, burning the blue dark round their moons, each like a mown red marigold, so hard the flame keeps hold. These are burnt thoroughly away. Only the first holds out a day beyond these latter loves that were made of mere heat and air. And now the time is winterly. The first love fades too. None will see when April warms the world anew, the place wherein love grew. End of poem. Dedication by Algernon Charles Swinburne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 1865. The sea gives her shells to the shingle. The earth gives her streams to the sea. They are many, but my gift is single. My verses, the first fruits of me. Let the wind take the green and the grey leaf, cast forth without fruit upon air. Take rose leaf and vine leaf and bay leaf blown loose from the hair. The night shakes them round me in legions, dawn drives them before her like dreams. Time sheds them like snows on strange regions, swept shoreward on infinite streams. Leaves pallid and sombre and ruddy, dead fruits of the fugitive years, some stained as with wine and made bloody, and some as with tears. Some scattered in 7 years' traces as they fell from the boy that was then, long left among idle green places, or gathered but now among men, on seas full of wonder and peril, blown white round the capes of the north, or on islands where myrtles are sterile and loves bring not forth. O daughters of dreams and of stories that life is not wearied of yet, Faustine, Fragoletta, Dolores, Felice, and Yolande, and Juliet, shall I find you not still, shall I miss you, when sleep that is true or that seems comes back to me hopeless to kiss you, O daughters of dreams. They are past as a slumber that passes, as the dew of a dawn of old time, more frail than the shadows on glasses, more fleet than a wave or a rime. As the waves after ebb drawing seaward, when their hollows are full of the night, so the birds that flew singing to me-ward recede out of sight. The songs of dead seasons that wander on wings of articulate words, lost leaves that the shore wind may squander, light flocks of untamable birds. Some sang to me dreaming in class time and truant in hand as in tongue. For the youngest were born of boys past time, the eldest are young. Is there shelter while life in them lingers? Is there hearing for songs that recede? Tunes touched from a harp with man's fingers, or blown with a boy's mouth in a reed? Is there place in the land of your labor? Is there room in your world of delight, where change has not sorrow for neighbor, and day has not night? In their wings, though the sea wind yet quivers, will you spare not a space for them, there made green with the running of rivers, and gracious with tempered air? In the fields and the turreted cities, that cover from sunshine and rain fair passions and bountiful pities and loves without stain. In a land of clean colors and stories, in a region of shadowless hours, where earth has a garment of glories and a murmur of musical flowers, in woods where the spring half uncovers the flush of her amorous face, by the waters that listen for lovers, for these is their place. For the songbirds of sorrow, that muffle their music as clouds do their fire, for the storm birds of passion, that ruffle wild wings in a wind of desire. In the stream of the storm, as it settles, blown seaward, borne far from the sun, shaken loose on the darkness like petals dropped one after one. Though the world of your hands be more gracious and lovelier in lordship of things, clothed round by sweet art, with a spacious warm heaven of her immanent wings, let them enter, unfledged and nigh fainting, for the love of old loves and lost times, and receive in your palace of painting this revel of rhymes. Though the seasons of man full of losses make empty the years full of youth, if but one thing be constant in crosses, change lays not her hand upon truth. Hopes die, and their tombs are for token that the grief as the joy of them ends ere time that breaks all men has broken the faith between friends. Though the many lights dwindle to one light, there is help if the heaven has one. Though the skies be discrowned of the sunlight and the earth dispossessed of the sun, they have moonlight and sleep for repayment, when, refreshed as a bride and set free, with stars and sea winds in her raiment, night sinks on the sea. End of poem. End of Poems and Ballads, First Series, by Algernon Charles Swinburne.